Hey guys, this is John. I want to thank you so much for going through the How to Win Friends and Influence People Friendship Seminar course and all the associated bonus trainings, which is super exciting, and I hope you're getting a ton of value from it and just enjoying it to the highest extent possible, because I put so much work into it, and there's just been so many people collaborating with it, and kind of to get everything together just for you. So I am super excited that you're going to have access to it, and you're enjoying it. And you're learning so much from it that you can now apply and really absolutely crush it with, because like this information is just so critical, so key. And honestly, it's just game-changing stuff. And so with that said, I'm sure you're getting a ton of value from it, and I am super excited that you're able to apply it. I wanted to give you this little bonus interview with one of my professors, Professor Mayer. He does a lot of investing, not necessarily in stocks or not directly in stocks, but the investing he does do is very heavily interweaved with this idea of relationship assets. The investing that he does do, at least, the core of it, the base of it, really comes down to the connections he has. And it's not just like business partners, but it's actually, and this is what I want you to listen for and look for throughout this interview and try to focus on once you see it, is what he talks about support groups and communities. And what's cool is, as 9 to Noon clients, you have access to the private Facebook group. So I want you to kind of understand the mentality he has with the groups that he participates in, and think about how you could apply that to your own investing success to create phenomenal results, and absolutely crush it. And I also want you, there's like two big things. Like the first big thing is community. The first big thing is people. The first big thing is relationship assets. And the second big thing is education. There's a lot of stuff in here. It's very subtle, yet very interesting about sort of how education kind of shifted and shaped this man's life. And I think there's a lot you can learn from it that wouldn't necessarily come across on the surface as you first approach him. And then we'll talk a lot about that early on in the interview, so you'll get a really quick background on that. But I want you to understand sort of how his social connections and how the relationships that he built over time actually shaped his future, because like the relationships you build can literally shape and transform your entire life, and it all just comes down to the way that you use them. So with that said, thank you so much for being a loyal client, and I will see you in the interview. So thanks. See you in a sec. All right. Awesome. All right, Dr. Mayer. So, what do like your investments look like right now?
I have no idea. So I do this thing once a month. At the end of every month, or the beginning, I look at all of the accounts I have and how much is in there, and I sort of do a net worth calculation and see how things are going. And I lived in Canada for a few years. I grew up in Canada. I worked in Canada for a few years, so some of my investments are over there.
You taught in Canada?
Yeah. I taught in Canada. That's how I got involved in higher education and online learning. I was teaching these undergraduate courses. The first course I ever taught was sort of like an integral calculus course.
Oh, really?
And the students, great students, but all I was really given was a syllabus and the textbook. And I said, good luck.
Wow.
After doing that for a couple times, because I was doing my PhD at the time, and when math departments often have many calculus and linear algebra courses that have to be taught. So I got to do that many times. After I finished my PhD, I was looking for jobs in online learning, and because I really liked the idea of doing things in a more systematic, supportive, community-based way. When you build an online course, you really have to build it in such a way that you work with lots of people and experts in specific areas. It's too much work to do it all by yourself. And it's just I love the sustainability of online courses. But yeah, so that was kind of how I got started in my path that I'm on now. So up in Canada, I was working on online courses at 2 different institutions, and eventually I came down to Atlanta to work here. And so yeah, some of my investments are still in Canadian funds, and I go back up there every now and then to see family and friends.
To school in Canada?
Yeah, I did my undergrad at the University of Waterloo, and my PhD, my undergrad at Western in it's called London, Ontario. It's not too far from Toronto, and that's where I met my wife, and did a PhD at Waterloo. Then I went to University of British Columbia in Vancouver to do a postdoc. funny enough, my supervisor was someone who is now my supervisor here at Atlanta. She moved to Atlanta as well. But anyways, yeah, so I've been here for the last 7 years or so, working at Georgia Tech. It's a great place to work, great benefits. Students are awesome. Traffic is terrible, but you make it work. Yeah, so nowadays I have a mix of, with working at Georgia Tech, I have a 401k match.
Mm-hmm.
So it's silly not to take
They like
advantage of that.
100% match?
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, so I just put in as much as I can every time and set it on autopilot so it automatically goes into that account. And been watching that grow for the last, how long have I been working here? 7 years? Something like that. And after that, with the money left over, my wife and I have been looking at real estate. So we purchased a house about not quite, 2 years ago in Atlanta, and been watching it, evolve, learning from all of the things you learn about. That was my first house I've ever purchased, so I've learned a lot.
It's a big process.
It's something that my wife was far more familiar with, so thank goodness I had her to sort of bounce ideas off of and work with to figure out what would work. We also got a lot of help from our real estate agent. We're big, Bigger Pockets junkies. Do you know Bigger Pockets?
What's that?
Oh, it's huge. If you're into real estate, you got to check it out. It's a online community. They have free forums, discussion forums. They have books. They have several podcasts, conferences. And so when I'm driving into work, I'm often listening to one of their podcasts.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, today I was listening about one of their podcasts, Bigger Pockets Money, and I learned a lot of great ideas from that. But anyways, yeah, so I was asking questions on the forums, and one of the real estate agents in the area found me, and he helps helps people find houses, especially for those like me who are looking for something that's more like an investment. I'd never really wanted to buy a house that I would live in for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
More of a kind of a buy and hold kind of mentality.
Well, that's smart.
So we were looking for a small multifamily or something with an in-law suite that we could rent out, right? The house hack model, where you have people paying rent to help you pay off the mortgage. So we were looking at the time about 2 years ago, it's not like there were lots of duplexes and triplexes at every corner of Atlanta, but the one we found out in Norcross, it's about half an hour away. We bought it for, $198,000, I think. And because it was my first house and because I was going to move into it, we were able to take advantage of the FHA loan, Federal Housing Administration.
Yeah.
Yeah, FHA. So you can put a much smaller percentage of the mortgage down, 3.5%, rather than the full, conventional loan, 20%. But thank goodness for that. And it had tenants on one side, and I moved into one side of the duplex and was managing the property and trying to fix the place up, and I'm still there and still trying to fix the place up. Oh my goodness, I learned a lot. But I'm very thankful for that learning process. I think it helped us, my wife and I, in a lot of ways to figure out what it's like to go through that process. And then I think some of the things we learned from that we took to our next purchase. We purchased another home last year in October in Florida. Same idea, another house hack. So we're renting out one of the bedrooms to a good friend and just trying to figure out how to make it work. Right now we're looking into, what is it, Neighbor.com, I think it's called. It's like the Airbnb of like personal storage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we're taking a space in the front lawn.
The front lawn?
And seeing if we can find someone to park their car for a small fee, because we've got all this space in the front lawn off to the side. It turned out we purchased a lot and a half, right? So we've got this space off to the side of the house that people, we hope, will use to park their cars. We think it's going to work. We look at the area, and there's a few other people doing it in this small town where we're living, where we purchased the house. My wife, Cindy, lives down there. And so she's doing a lot of the setup for that. But I don't know, we're looking into it. We just set up our profile, what was it, on the weekend. We've already had one person ask us, is it free or is it available? Yeah, learning a lot. So we've got a little bit of real estate, a little bit of Canadian stuff, 401k, and a little bit of my savings. And I had a little bit of, there was a time about 2 years ago before I got into real estate, I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I didn't want to be working until I die. So I got involved in purchasing, I bought some Bitcoin about 2 years ago. I think it was 2017.
Yeah.
Might have been. Not a lot, because I didn't know a lot about it, but I slowly, took some Udemy courses and found what I could on the web to read about it. Tried to find podcasts, couldn't find anything related to crypto for absolute beginners. I could easily find podcasts of guys doing what we're doing right now, just chatting. But most of it was like by experts for experts. And so I learned a little bit from the Udemy courses, enough to start my own digital wallet on Coinbase and Poloniex.
Yeah, when Poloniex was around.
Yeah, when Poloniex was around, yeah. And so I invested a little bit on those two places and bought a few coins and tried to figure out some sort of analysis. What is it called? Technical analysis, yeah.
Yeah.
Tried to sort that out.
Learning from Udemy courses?
Yeah, from just Udemy courses and the Fibonacci curves. And
those are some complicated things. Yeah. Yeah,
and it didn't really go too well for me. And I don't think it really, and I think that's okay. I learned a few things, and I still have, some crypto that I watch. Every month I go back to my spreadsheets and I see, okay, it's up or down or whatever it is. And it's interesting. I might get back into it one day, but having a 401k match,
that's pretty great.
it's not going to be sufficient. I would still have to work until I die in order to retire. So, I can't not take advantage of it, but I have to do something else, right? Especially, so I'm moving down to Florida in the summer. I'm going to miss working at Georgia Tech. Oh, man, for a lot of reasons, but my wife and I were expecting, so I'm going to be a dad.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to learn how to change diapers and wake up at odd hours of the night to help little Zoe. We're going to have a daughter, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations, that's so cool.
Yeah, so that'll be in the summer, and I might still work for Georgia Tech in some capacity, because there are some things that you can still do remotely. So we'll see. But I'm looking for, I will be looking for very soon other things, but right now I've got to sort out how to be a dad.
Right.
and wrap up all the things I've got to wrap up before I leave in May, June, July, that kind of timeline. But the house, fortunately, we finally gave up. And oh, did you have another question? I could
No,
ramble
it's
and ramble.
cool.
The house we I turns out I found out I like doing the property management, like managing the
You
tenants.
like doing the management?
It's not for everybody, but I liked it.
Yeah.
I don't think I was the best person at it, but I learned a few things. And it's just when I move down to Florida, I won't be able to do it very well remotely. And so we've got a property management company stepping in right now to help.
Here in
figure
Atlanta.
out- Yeah. Yeah, it was not too hard to find a good company or a company that looks good. We'll find out. We just started, working with them, and I think they'll be able to help us find good tenants for maybe both sides of the duplex.
Mm-hmm.
Time will tell, but that's something I don't think we'll have to sell. There's a sort of a 5-year time window you have when you purchase a property. Might be with FHA, I'm not sure, but where you can still sell the house and not have to pay capital gains.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so we'll see. If it doesn't work out, we've still got about 3 years left.
Yeah.
That time window.
And you
could buy the house, and there's these other exchange programs. What is it? Where you sell your house and buy another house
Yeah,
as long as the
like
next
wise
house.
exchanges.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, the property has some appreciation, and we're still putting money into fixing the house up. That was one thing I learned. Another thing I learned is when you purchase the house, you've got to have a pretty clear idea of what kind of renovations are involved. And there was a few surprises. We didn't anticipate having to put in some new breaker boxes and some new appliances. We knew we had to get a new roof, but all in all, that house we purchased for $198. It's now the renovations have been over $60,000.
Really?
So for us to sell the house and still make money, it'll happen eventually. We're charging rent, so it's I'm not too worried about it.
What do those returns look like in terms of rent? Like if you were gonna have full occupation forever and ever, when would you see break even?
Oh, I haven't. See, it's embarrassing. I haven't done the math for that, but I would think, if it has full occupancy, the rent more than covers the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still capex. There's all these repairs that have to get made, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's going to be a long time for us because we bought the house at 198 and not something lower before we can get to that break-even point. So this is, what they say in the Bigger Pockets community. Often that first purchase is not your best, usually.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if I were to go back again, I don't regret it at all. I'm glad we bought this particular house, but I think what we needed was something with less maintenance. So
Right.
it's going to take us a while to recoup the costs of having to put in that new roof and the HVAC and the new
That's a lot of work.
a lot of that stuff. Yeah, and it's not so bad actually. I was worried going into it. You hear these stories about having to fix leaky toilets and tenants burning down the kitchen or whatever. It's been basically none of that. Most months, as a landlord, now think about it. I don't know how many of your listeners are renters, but think about how much work your landlord does each month versus how much money you give them each month.
Yeah.
Right? You kind of want to be on the other side of that equation, right? You want to be the person who collects the rent money, not the person who gives the rent money. So, but renting has some great advantages. I wouldn't have gotten through college if I hadn't been renting my whole way. I don't think, but
That's interesting. So when you were in college, were you just putting everything towards your education?
Everything educate. Yeah, well, the three biggest expenses: housing, transportation, and food. All my money was towards that, and I regret going back. If I were to, talk to my 18-year-old self, I would say, find a way to save some money, put some money away. It wasn't until I started working that I started putting money into, mutual funds and other thing, Canadian type of retirement. They have like similar retirement investment accounts in
Right.
Canada. It wasn't until then that I started doing that. But man, the power of compound interest.
Yeah.
If I had just started sooner, it doesn't have to be 20% of my income, but some small amount would have made a huge difference in the long run.
What do you
But-
think was like one of the roadblocks from starting sooner?
Oh, my roadblock? I love my family, but we never talked about financial anything growing up. I was, I looked at my parents and saw savers. So I was never a person, I've never really been a person to go out and spend a lot of money on things.
Well, that's good.
So that part's good.
Yeah.
So on the other hand, everything I've learned about, investing is through books and podcasts and blogs and things. So
And that was like later on?
that was much later on.
Yeah.
It was the book everyone cites. Did it to me too, especially me because I'm a professor. Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh my god, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. It's puts you down a rabbit hole, that book,
It
right?
totally does. I think
Yeah.
it's like the thing that starts a lot for so many people.
Yeah. I think it was my wife that recommended it. She was talking about it, and so I picked it up, and because the poor dad is an academic and I'm an academic, it was like I could relate. So.
So you tried to change that.
Yeah, I had to do something, and I didn't know what. But my wife was into real estate. She had already, she had already purchased a home. She had a rental property, I should say, in Sarasota.
Oh,
We still have it, and it's doing well. And it's, and then she had purchased other homes and rented them out and things, and so she had some expertise. And so, whereas with crypto, I didn't have that. Community. I didn't have people I could talk to and get not just their expertise, but some motivation to keep going. I was kind of on my own. If I had just stuck to it and reached out to, I could have done, looked at meetup groups or whatever. I've done that for other things.
Yeah, meetup, yeah.
Why not? I mean, but I didn't. Real estate was right there, and so now I'm focusing on that. And
Yeah.
One day I might go back, but at the same time, it's like, man, there's 100 different things you can do to be successful. Thousands of things. You kind of have to at some point pick something and stick to it. That's my problem, is trying to just narrow down my day to one or two things. This is opposed to 100 things, But so for now we're doing that. Right at the moment we've got from all the repairs and just purchasing this house last October, we've got got to figure out how to save some money back up again and pay off a little bit of these loans to the things we just fixed up. But it'll happen. Plus I'm going to be a dad and I'm leaving my job, so I'm not quite sure how it's going to happen, but it will. Little Zoe's going to have to work. So, yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And then after that, it was just a rabbit hole of other podcasts and books. It was it Richest Man in Babylon? That's a quick
such
read.
a good one, yeah.
Yeah. It's written in such an older language because it's from the 1920s, I think.
I think that's when they recovered
Yeah.
the stone tablets that they had to transcribe.
Yeah, Pay Yourself First was in there, and it's such a good good mindset book, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what are some of the other ones I read that were really good? I don't know. The One Thing was good.
The One Thing's phenomenal.
Yeah.
When you think about like your investments, especially like with One Thing mentality, like a piece of advice I hear all the time is like do like one thing until it makes you $1 million, and then you can do something else.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. There's always another opportunity. I'm seeing ideas come across all the time. There was an event last Monday. I'm part of the Atlanta Real Estate Investors Association.
Uh-huh.
Not really. I just go to some of their meetings, right? They had one on Monday. It looked really awesome, and I thought, wow, they're making it sound like I could just go in that other direction and be successful, and I probably could. Probably anybody could, but
With real estate?
With real estate, yeah, they had a guy talking about wholesaling.
Oh yeah.
And man, that just sounds awesome. I think I'd love to do that. I think I really would, but one thing at a time. One thing at a time. But
is it like overload?
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, there's obvious with any investment strategy. There's some things you want to know. There's risks involved, so there's strategies to mitigate that risk, and things aren't always going to work initially. So sort of being patient and having a bit of persistence, finding the right people to help you through, just all that stuff. Putting your team together is going to take a while, but yeah, it'll work out in the end.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You talk like a whole lot about team and about community,
Yeah.
which is really cool and really interesting. And I know you really struggled in crypto because you never had that kind of community. You never had
Sure.
that kind of team. Can you talk about what elements of the team that you've built for real estate have really, really helped you sort of get into that market, get into that investment space, and have some of your successes with it?
Real estate agents were key for us. We had both with the home we purchased in October, and 2 years ago some agents that were specialists in the kinds of things we were looking at, familiar with the kind of investing we wanted, buy and hold, house hacking. So that was helpful. With real estate, you've got contractors and property managers. And finding good contractors is hard. I hope we found a great property manager, but with contractors, wow. It's easy to find one. Okay, there's what is it? Cost, good work, and fast work. Pick two if you're lucky. I could find a great plumber that would charge a lot and do a great job, but it cost a lot. And so eventually we had to look for somebody else to help with all our plumbing issues, and find the electrical work that we went through. We contacted a lot of electricians. A lot of them didn't return our phone calls. And the first company that came by just gave us a quote that was really expensive. So it can take, some time looking for the right people to work with. But once you've got that small team built up, I think it makes a big difference. I don't know with crypto. I could have if I just stuck it out, I could have found some people who were knowledgeable enough, sort of like those real estate agents we've worked with who are experts in some niche, and they could have helped us along in some way with some strategy. Those Udemy courses I took, I think they talked about the strategies they used, and it was working for them, right? So I'm sure if I just had a little bit more patience using their strategies, I probably would have been fine. But knowing when to stick it out or switch to some other project is another whole challenge.
That's tough for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But community really helps you in whatever goal you're trying to reach, whether you're trying to lose weight or learn a particular thing, or surrounding yourself with people who are the kind of person you want to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What's that phrase that you're the average of the 5 people around you or something like that?
100%.
Yeah. So
That's interesting. You know the guy who started Twitter? For like the first half decade of Twitter, they made like no money. They had no
Really?
users or anything. And the only thing that brought the CEO like to pound through and push harder was his team and the people around him, because he surrounded himself with like a positive base. And then they did like all this work and they just stuck with this one thing. They had no results for so long. And then in the span of like 3 or 4 years, it became one of like the 3rd largest social media things on the planet, and just have grown geometrically since then.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's the idea, like, you just can't quit.
You just can't quit. Even after 10 years, you might still be onto something.
I guess it depends on
really
how
depends.
the market.
I'm not advocating everybody bang their head against the wall for 10 years, but don't give up if after one day of working at something it doesn't work.
Right.
Just find something that meets the goals, and if it makes sense, if it hits not just your goals, but why your goals make sense to begin with. If you're, what is it? The why. You have a strong why.
Mm-hmm.
You might have heard about that before, but the reasons behind your goals are strong, and your idea is good because you can see other people doing it and having some success in it. Then maybe stick it out.
No way.
But
Do you have like any really big overarching long-term goals that kind of pull you towards them?
My wife and I want to be digital nomads in the next so many years. Yeah, we want to travel with our little Zoe. And because I've built a career in online learning, I'm sure I can find a way of making it happen. So it's just whether I'm teaching or making courses or blogging or whatever it is, it'll take it take me a while to figure out what that thing is, but my wife the same. She's an occupational therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Has a great job, but I think the pull to travel and see more world is pretty strong. So once we get our real estate empire built up, Zoe's old enough, and we also have 2 dogs, so we've got to travel, the 5 of us. But we'll drive around continental U.S. And we miss a lot of our family up in Canada. I'd love to go back up there in the warmer months. I could stay there year round, but go up and see some of our friends and family that we haven't seen in a long time. I live far enough south that it's hard to get people to come down and visit me that I haven't seen in a long time.
Oh.
So it's about 14 hours drive.
Yeah.
For me to see my mom, and so it's doable, like once a year. But yeah, the digital nomad life, it's the way to go. I'm gonna buy a little RV and drive across the country. As long as we go where there's internet, I think we'll be okay.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the plan. We'll see.
You can get like super cheap cost of living if you go abroad in some of these foreign countries. Not like with the coronavirus.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There's some countries where the cost of living is so much better. Even just moving from Vancouver to Atlanta. Oh my God. Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada is a lot like any place on the West Coast. Seattle and, San Francisco. Super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And Atlanta's getting more expensive too.
Atlanta's supposed to be super cheap.
Comparatively, yeah, it's much better. Oh my God. We could buy a duplex, and we did. But there's no way we could have bought that duplex if we were living out in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
No way. We would have gotten a small shack 2 hours outside of the city. Maybe. And But things are turning around.
That's good.
Eventually, I think Atlanta will be an expensive place to live. But for now, it's all right. Still, so the house we bought was in this small town, and things are changing there too. It's becoming a bigger town.
Oh,
Houses are getting more expensive, but it's not. It's nowhere near like living in a large metro area. So you can still buy awesome house and do the house hack thing with on a budget.
On a budget.
Yeah.
That's cool. For those who don't know, what's house hacking entail?
It's just any kind of a situation where you move into the house and you rent out part of the house.
To pay for it.
Yeah, to help pay for the mortgage.
That's smart. That's cool.
Yeah. So buy a duplex, buy a triplex, buy a house with an in-law suite, or a lot of the houses we were looking at had a fully furnished, fully functional like basement with a kitchen, bathroom. So you rent out possibly, or I would live in the basement and rent out the upstairs, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of like multifamily properties out there, so that's why it was helpful for us to get to be a part of that Bigger Pockets community, to find the people that could connect us with those kinds of properties that that you could house hack. But it ended up the place where I live now. I think every house on that street I live on is a rental property. I'm surrounded by other duplexes.
Mm-hmm.
I think nobody in my street lives in the property that they own other than me. I mean, the places are out there. You've got to be a little creative. And what I hear a lot about on the podcasts is you'll get a house with like a spare office, a large living room, some extra room that they convert into another bedroom or another property that can be rented out, something, And so it might take a little bit of creativity, but those places and opportunities are out there. But yeah, you could, and the way you house hack can be not just, if you don't want to manage tenants, that's fine. Do what I do. You get a property management company, and they take care of finding great tenants and broken toilets in the middle of the night.
Ouch.
Right? I mean, it never happened to me. I don't think it ever would, but I did have broken toilets. But it's not a middle of the night call. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, this toilet needs to get fixed. Okay, sure. You call a plumber, they take care of it.
Right.
It's not like rocket science to be a landlord, but there are some things you got to know, right? So you just got to figure out what those systems are and stick to those systems. And it all comes down to writing a really good lease.
Oh, really?
Right. You just to make a bulletproof, everything is in the lease, and if there's any problems, you just say, well, look, it says in the lease that we have to do this. So I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to do this. That's what it comes down to. Yeah. And there's great templates out there for writing a lease, but you could you could just give it to a property management company, and they'll take a percentage of the rent, and you're still pulling out ahead, probably, if you're careful and buy a great property that you can still pay for all your expenses after all of these things are done. But there's entire workshops and books and podcast episodes on how to find a great property and purchase that property and make sure it's going to be a great investment for you. So it's not.
That's good. Yeah,
it's not. That's not rocket science either. There's lots of ways of finding great properties. So. Yeah. That's what I did. That's what I'm doing right now, house hacking. My tenants moved out right now, and so, when did they move out? In December? So we're right now fixing the place up, putting in new floors, fixing up a bathroom. So I think one of the bigger expenses of renting, of owning these rental properties is vacancy. Because in those months where you don't have tenants living there, not collecting rent, that's like a few thousand every month. Or well, whatever the rent is times the number of months. So yeah, that's a challenge. But even there's great systems for that too. I mean, just find really good tenants. Have a really good process for finding really good tenants. I'm gonna let the property management sort that out because they know all the tricks, right?
Okay.
But I mean, there's you could look that up and find if that's your thing. I would love to do it. I'm so busy with all these other Georgia Tech things and moving down to Florida is gonna make it really hard to manage the property. So I'll just let them worry about it.
Right.
But yeah.
Before you had them, like, how much time would you spend on a month-to-month basis managing your investments and managing that property?
Most months I did nothing.
Nothing.
At the end of the month, I would just get this check. Here you go, Greg. Here's our rent. And I would charge late fees. If it was late, there's an extra fee. Every month it was late. Not every month, but most months there was a late fee I would get. And then every now and then, like if a toilet was leaky or whatever, I'd have to call the plumber and I'd pay for the plumber to come by. And so I would say a couple hours maybe in a month, on average, a couple hours a month.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Right now, it's more work because it's vacant and, want to fix the place up. But still, like I have a guy coming over today to look at removing some trees. I'm not even going to be there. The guy's just going to look at the trees and tell me how much it's going to cost, and I'm going to just say yay or nay. Like it's a couple emails or text messages that I have to send and reply to. It's awesome. So the amount of money, in one way, it depends on how you want to look at it, but in one sense, I'm making a lot of money per month, per hour. On the other hand, I'm also paying a lot of money for all these repairs, which, in my case, if we had just bought a house that required less repairs, a newer house, something that was just renovated. The house we bought in Florida is almost needs no work at all. But once all those repairs are done, then that's, there'll still be every so many years the water heater is going to have to get replaced and the roof is going to have to be replaced every so often. But those things don't happen very often, so
that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if you just pay off the mortgage, that's another thing. You can just pay off the mortgage, and then after the only expenses you've got are property management, CapEx, maybe some taxes. Well, there's always taxes, but then you're laughing. But
what's CapEx?
CapEx? Oh, capital expenditures. So any large expense, like we had to put in a new air conditioner last year.
Oh, okay.
That's a few thousand.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So what we do is, what I've been doing is putting about a few $100s into a savings account every month.
From the rent?
From the rent, and and so that goes into the CapEx account. And then if ever I need to fix something up, I draw from that. Right now it's empty. And I got a guy who's got to remove some trees, so I mean, it's not perfect, my system. Never said it was, but still, I'm learning. I'm still learning. I'll get it sorted out eventually. Worst case scenario, we just sell the house and move on to the next property. So there's always that. And luckily, the house is still appreciating. You can't bank on appreciation. You don't know for sure that any property or any investment is going to gain in value over the years, but it's fairly safe. I'm not too worried. Even if it appreciates at 3% to meet inflation, after so many years, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't done the math. I have to work out how many years it would take to break even, but it's a hard calculation to make because I don't know how many repairs I'm going to have to make over the next few years. And my rent eventually is going to go up. Every year it's got to go up with inflation. Rent will go up. Mortgage will go down. house value will go up, taxes will go up. But in the long run, the long-term picture is looking pretty good. But yeah.
That's phenomenal. It sounds like a really great hard asset you own.
Yeah. It was a very good learning experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think with the courses you teach and the online trainings, that those are sort of similar in terms of like they're your asset?
No. Yes. I mean, I've learned a lot about how to make courses. I teach and make things for online courses, and I support all that stuff. But everything I do at Georgia Tech is owned by Georgia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately. Well, I mean, it makes sense that that's the way it is. It just means that after I leave Georgia Tech in the summer, or whatever I do, I'm saying goodbye to a lot of things, all those projects I was working on. So yeah, I mean, I've played around with the idea of starting my own blog, making my own courses, but I haven't really set that up quite yet and got that running and selling my own products. I'm sure I could do it. It would just take me a while to get that email subscriber list up so that when I launch my online course, people know about it, or my online seminar or whatever it is that I'm making. It just takes time to build an audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
That makes sense.
yeah.
So you think it's like easier if you're starting out and you don't really want to put in all the work to your own audiences, that you could just work for someone else, and is that worked out well for you?
It's one way of doing it, yeah, for sure, is to learn by if someone wants to learn a certain industry, yeah, freelance or work for that particular in that industry for a little while until you've learned the ropes and you can start your own business or some project, be involved in some project so that you can take it to the next level.
Right. That's smart.
Yeah.
When you were starting out and first getting into becoming like this super amazing math professor, what were some of like the first jobs you did that got you into the space?
When I was doing my PhD, I wanted to do anything other than work on my PhD. And so I got involved in web design. I was starting up little tiny clubs on campus, but we didn't have an easy way of making websites. And so I created the Web Design Club. And I didn't know anything about web design. But here I was building websites for other clubs.
You just jumped in?
Just jumped in and helped other people. People who knew how to make websites. I connected them. I was more kind of the person that connected the people who needed the product with the people who knew how to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just doing that for free. It doesn't take a lot of time. Especially at that point, WordPress, you could build a WordPress website pretty quickly. This was 2006 and 2007. And WordPress has changed a lot since then. But yeah, it's easy to set up a WordPress website. It's just people didn't know about WordPress at that time. So that really helped me land my first job building online courses, because I could say, oh, well, I know what HTML is, I know what CSS is, I've done it for these little things, and I've helped people build their websites, so I can help professors build their online courses. And they hired me. Yeah, so I'd say, looking for volunteer opportunities, things you can do on the side that are aligned with wherever you want to go. That's one tip I have.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then you got your PhD, and it was like worth everything. It was the best thing ever.
I wouldn't have the job I have now if it wasn't for the PhD.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I think I think, looking back, I don't think I needed a PhD to be happy. I could have stopped at just the undergrad, found a great job from there, but I enjoyed the process of getting the master's and the PhD, and I got another master's after that.
Oh,
That's it. I'm done. I've 4 degrees. 4 degrees is 4 degrees too many. I could have just gotten a high school diploma, and it would have been harder, but I would have been able to find happiness. Happiness at the end of the day is just a choice. I mean, I used to really get stressed out by certain things, but I realized I can choose to let it bother me or not, then my life became a lot easier.
Really? What made you realize that?
Oh, mindfulness. Yeah, I was getting really stressed out in my last year of college. I'll tell you the whole story. Okay, so I was diagnosed with epilepsy.
Oh no.
In my last year of college, and it really stressed me out more than the physical symptoms, by far more than the physical symptoms, because I was really lucky. It was really just like on rare occasions, if I'm around certain triggers, getting a needle.
Ooh.
I'll be fine, right? And then, but I didn't know that. And so I got some help. I went to the counseling services on campus.
Uh-huh.
This was back in London at the University of Western Ontario. Anyways, and they introduced this whole thing of mindfulness. It's century-old technique of just focusing on something and being aware of it. It sounds easy. I was focusing on my breath, and I was journaling too. That reflective process helped me sort of, step back. It took me a lot of time. I'm still working on it. I always will be, of applying that philosophy to other areas of my life. But, I remember even when I started working at Georgia Tech 6-7 years ago, there were little things I would just, oh my God, I can't believe they said that, and they still do that. But if I just sort of step back and say, you know what, I just focus on the things I can control, and that's all I can do. And I was listening to an interview with Tim Ferriss. You probably know Tim Ferriss, right?
Mm-hmm, that's great.
Yeah. And he talks about how he doesn't follow the news anymore.
Oh yeah.
Because you can't. What can you do about the latest headline that appears on on your web browser? Nothing. But if you spend your day focusing on the things that will help you reach your goals, then you'll probably eventually reach your goals, depending on what they are. But yeah, so it's not trivially easy to do that, but I can't. I can't change the things I can't change. So having to remind myself to just focus on that has been very helpful. Very helpful. So every morning I meditate.
Oh no way.
Yeah, for about 5 minutes with my wife. Like this morning, we'll called her up. She was just getting out of bed, and the dogs are just waking up. They're really cute when they're waking up. And we'll set a timer for 5 minutes and do that every morning. And it's been helpful. Yeah. But I'd love to do it for more than 5 minutes, but finding time to do that is tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there's actually, I see on campus a couple student organizations that look at meditation and mindfulness. And those types of meetups are easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
There's, if anybody out there wants to get involved in a little bit of mindfulness and meditation.
So the big thing has been like the clarity it brings you and the reflection?
Yeah, reflection. Sort of being able to step back and say, what what can I do about this situation that will change it? How can I improve? How can I help this situation? Rather than reacting to it. So that's been helpful.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Have you kept up that journal?
I have 3 journals now.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I have like a gratitude journal. Things I'm thankful for.
Things you're thankful
Yeah,
for.
that one's good. I think I got the idea from. It was one of the podcasts I was listening to, but anyways.
I know Tim talks about that.
Does he? Okay. Yeah, it could have been Tim Ferriss. It's just helpful for. I find it helps me look for things that are positive in my life. And I don't know. I believe it's also helpful to look for opportunities. If I don't really believe in luck, I think there's just lots of opportunities out there, and if you just keep your eyes open to them, you'll find great projects to work on and people you want to work for and things. But I think that gratitude journal, it just helps me keep, if nothing else, makes me happy. I have a Zoe journal, and I don't write in them every day. I should, but Zoe journal is just sort of the journey I'm on of becoming a parent. One day I'll give it to her and say, "This is what I was going through. I'm sorry." And I bought another one. It's the 90-day intention journal, where you lay out all the goals that you want to have, and in 90 days you try to reach those.
Oh, okay.
I'm failing at that one. Oh, it's really hard.
Short-term goals are hard.
Yeah. It's sticking to it, finding time to spend a little bit of time in your day to get to where you want to go in 90 days. And so, but it comes down to picking your goals, I think, really carefully so that you can find something that's achievable.
Right.
But yeah, so that's my strategy. I've kind of been doing journaling a lot over the years, and only lately have themes to them.
Okay.
But I did this one thing. Like once a day, I would write sort of like a something I'm thankful in for my life, in relation to my marriage.
Okay.
And I would write it on an index card, and I did this for 100 days.
Wow.
So after 100 days, I put a little nice bow on it and wrapped it up and gave it to my wife. 100 reasons why I'm thankful that we're married, and that was awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's neat seeing how all the you're looking back and reading those cards. You relive a lot of moments. Yeah, it's nice.
See a lot of joy from the memories of your past.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wrote one for New Year's Day, and I wrote one for Christmas, and I wrote one for Valentine's Day, and so you kind of go back to those days and remember what happened.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you set your goals and you want to make them attainable, how far do you try to push yourself to still make them big goals for you?
Not far enough. Oh man. One of my favorite books is what is it? James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Oh man, it's about that question, about how far do you go to reach your goal? What are the processes in place to help you get there? And it's a book called Atomic Habits because the processes that you put into place are just a collection of tiny little things that are going to help you get to where you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
Little atoms. That if you're not going to celebrate because of any one of those little things you did, like get to your desk to start working on your project. Open up your laptop, but if you don't do that, and that's often the hardest part is getting to start working on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll never get there.
Right. You gotta start.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, I learned through reading that book that it's as important as goals are. Really, it's not enough just to have great goals. It's the processes, it's the systems you have in order to get there.
Yeah.
And if you haven't worked out that, you'll never get to where you want to go. The goal is just a dream.
Right. So you gotta do stuff.
You gotta do stuff. You gotta figure out what that process is gonna look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like right now I'm trying to make an online course for Georgia Tech before I leave.
Yeah.
So I've set my schedule up so that, you know, on these weeks I have these parts of the course done. So at the end of this week I'm going to finish the module on whatever, and next week it's going to be the next module after that. And just making the slides, and then in March, you know, every week record these lectures. So, a big part of reaching your goals, a great strategy is to sort of lay out a schedule like that. So your time is already set.
It sounds like systems and processes and stuff like schedules are really, really, really big for you.
Yeah.
Did that start out when you were young, or is it something that came later?
No, it just evolved, and work for anyone at any one job long enough. If you're working for somebody else, you'll get really good at it. Probably, I hope. And eventually, they'll just give you more work. They might increase your salary a little bit, but you're going to get more work. Especially if you're good at what you do, right? And so I found that over the years working at Georgia Tech, you know, of course, so-and-so is leaving. Somebody's got to do the job that they were doing. Greg, can you... Or, Greg, this course would be so much better if we could just do this, train our TAs this way instead of that way. When I first started teaching Georgia Tech, this linear algebra course I'm working on, man, they didn't train the TAs. Well, they did have some training. They had training. I should say they had some training. But not for the online course. They didn't have worksheets. They didn't have lecture slides. They didn't have my MATLAB. They had Piazza. Thank goodness they had that, so students could complain. But, you know, over the years, you make these little changes, these atomic habits. You add them all up together, and then you have this smooth sailing sort of course that you still are, you know, it's still evolving. It never stops evolving, but you... yeah, and so because of that, the workload growing, you end up being forced to find systems. Are they good systems? No. But you find something that works and tweak it until you can try to get things done. This is why I don't get enough sleep. But I think that's just everybody doesn't get enough sleep. Unless you're retired. Maybe one day, but yeah.
So it's tough to simplify the processes you have to go through every day?
Sure. Yeah. For me it is. Yeah.
Do you think it would help to habitually say no to things?
Oh yeah. That's a key piece of advice. Yeah, is to know when to say no. You know.
Because it's hard?
It's hard, yeah. What's that book, The One Thing? I forgot who the author was, but if you try to get it down to just one thing that you're working on and just do a really good job of that, it's a lot easier than trying to work on 50 things and do an okay job of all of them.
Right.
Yeah, I'm working on that. One day. So, but we'll see.
That's really cool, Dr. Mayer. I think, you know, especially if you're working to get like different streams of income, then that makes it a little more difficult because you have sort of a lot of things up in the air.
Yeah, that's it. That's just it. I mean, if you want to have more than one stream of income for various reasons, then you're trying to juggle more than one ball, so to speak. That's why 401ks are awesome, because you don't really have to think about it too much.
What do you invest in?
I don't know. I meet my financial advisor, and it goes into some diversified portfolio of investments, and I don't invest in individual stocks or you know, it's just I don't know.
You don't know. Do you like know how the returns are for that?
No.
Do you know, like, your
I
returns?
look at it. I mean, I look at it every month and say, okay, it's doing a good job, or it's down a little bit this month. And I can see how much I've put into. Yeah, I could see both for Canadian and my 401k here. Finds how much I put in, and
So you
compared to, yeah, that ratio of what I've put into it compared to what it's valued at now.
Right.
It would take me a couple minutes or two to do that for the 401k. But I haven't looked at that.
So basically, with your passive investments, you spend like what 5 minutes a month, just checking
Yeah.
the numbers, and that's like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Well, I'm lucky. I mean, yeah, I just knowing to set it up correctly. I've heard horror stories of people putting their investments in the wrong places, like savings accounts or
Oh yeah.
individual stocks. But yeah, I've been lucky. I think with all these things, there's some risk, of course. So.
What's been the riskiest story or the thing you've heard?
Oh, well, crypto. I got really lucky because I purchased things before things blew up, and I still have some money left over, and I never put a lot of money into crypto, like a couple $100 really, and now it's close to like $3,000 I have in crypto. Yay!
It's phenomenal.
So I wish I put in more at the time, but you never know, right? Who knows where it's going to go 10 years from now? I mean,
Right.
I have no telling, but
So you learned before the pack.
yeah. So
And was that just a fundamental play, like with most of your investments?
what do you mean?
Just looking at the core of the investment, just the fundamentals.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Are there like maybe 3 resources that you were starting out with, that you were learning with, that were really, really impactful when you were starting out?
For crypto or
For your
anything?
investments, yeah.
Investments, period?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. I mean, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad after I had already started working at Georgia Tech and had this great 401k, and that was after I had started already making long-term investments in Canada. In Canada, because I just don't spend a lot of money, I just didn't know what to do with it.
Oh, well, it's a good thing to do with it.
What did I do? What was I reading at the time? I don't know. Yeah, I think what I ended up doing is I went to the bank. Yeah, that's right. I went to my bank and said, look, I'm making more than I'm spending. What do I do with this extra income?
Oh, okay.
Right? And they recommended putting it into like a retirement fund, what's called a registered retirement RSP,
Mm-hmm.
savings plan.
Your savings plan.
Yeah. I love the name. It kind of makes sense, right? Registered retirement savings plan.
Yeah.
It's what it is. That's what a 401k is.
It's a
but
lot
in the US,
easier than
401k.
yeah.
But yeah, 401k. It's like, yeah. So, talking to experts was maybe what got me started off. And then talking to my wife, who introduced me to Bigger Pockets and Richest Man in Babylon and Rich Dad Poor Dad. That just put me down a big rabbit hole.
That's really cool. It's like so awesome that you've had that community to support you with those.
Yeah. I mean, check it out. The Bigger Pockets forums are huge. There's for every kind of real estate, from mobile home parks to flipping to buy and hold, every kind of real estate. There's a forum for that on biggerpockets.com. But that was very helpful. Just reading what people had asked. I mean, what did I do? I mean, when I discovered any kind of problem in my property, I could go to the forum and do a search and look up, my tenant wants to have a pet. What should I do about pet fees? Or I found poison ivy in the backyard. What am I going to do? So you look up all the people who've already had that problem, and you read all the posts, and you're like, oh, okay, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Or we were thinking about buying a house in a flood zone. Is that a bad idea? We read the forums, and we're like, yeah, it's a bad idea. For us. For some people it works. I mean, depending on what you're trying to do, but, you know.
It's crazy. There have been houses in, like, middle of Texas that have been rebuilt 19 times in the last, like, 14 years from all the hurricanes.
Never give up, man. Never give up.
Like, the insurance companies don't want to even cover them anymore.
No, yeah.
People just get attached to it, and then, like, they want the exact same house and the exact same floodplain. 19 times.
19 times.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And one thing I always kind of like to understand, because a lot of people see it and they're like, oh my gosh, really, really successful professor, absolutely crushing it, and has so many really phenomenal assets in his life. What was, like, your first job? Because I think kind of the first thing you ever do is...
Oh, my first job ever?
Yeah.
Oh, I was I was cleaning an aquarium, like, fish tank at a landscaping company. I got into, because of my uncle, aquariums and fish tanks at home was a hobby. And so I was 15 years old, and there was a landscaping company in the small town where I lived. And so I was like, can I clean your pond once a week for $5? So I got $5 a week. And I did a really good job of cleaning his pond because I knew what to do. And so they gave me a job at the landscaping company, and I was terrible. Like this one time I was backing up the van to pick up something for flowers for a delivery, and I scraped the car. The van got, like, I hit a tree basically. Like a month later, my family's driving to Toronto, and the van just happened to pass us by, and my sister's like, what happened to the van? It looks like it got all dinged up somehow. I'm like, I don't know. Oh, man, I was terrible. I worked at Pizza Hut for a couple months before they fired me, basically, because I was just awful. Like, yeah, I'm pretty absent-minded, and I'm okay with that. I know I can be teach online and be absent-minded. It's fine, because as long as the thing eventually gets done, if I forget it today, I'll fix it tomorrow. It's but when you're waiting on, like, customer service is not my.
It was tougher.
Yeah, it's tougher. Yeah,
Did you get fired after the van?
No, I don't know why. They kept me around after that. I was terrible. Yeah, I mean, they had to really... I had these summer jobs I kept doing, and I was pretty bad at all of them.
Was that like Pizza Hut?
Pizza Hut? Like, when I was in college, I would go home for the summer and do landscaping, something like I helped this one business. They were like a landscaping business that would do interlocking brick walkways and driveways and things, and I buried the tools. You couldn't find the tools because I had buried them under the dirt pile. I was just not, like, not all there for that kind of stuff. I learned a lot. A lot of those jobs, you get an idea of what your strengths are or aren't, and you kind of learn what you want to do and how to work with people. That's sometimes the toughest
thing. Social skills are massive.
Yeah. Leadership and getting things done. But yeah, I'm thankful for all of those opportunities. I would go back and do that again. I would work at Pizza Hut. I'd be happy.
Yeah?
Yeah. If they paid me a little bit better, it'd be nice. But a year now, you might find me, like, at the local Pizza Hut taking your order. I'd be okay with that.
Why is that?
It's a good job. I mean, it's hard. I like that. It's a challenge, and I'm maybe not good at it, but eventually I can work on it. And the tips were good. That's how you make your money as a waiter. There were tables I did a terrible job, and the customers still gave me a great tip.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was nice. And then there was the other way went around. If I did a perfect job, everything went smoothly, they'd give me no tip. Or they'd walk out and not pay the bill at all.
Oh no.
Yeah, Not very often, but every now and then there'd be somebody who would skip the bill.
Oh.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah, it was. Yeah, it's it's something I would definitely do again. Except I'd work for Taco Bell. I think Taco Bell you actually get like benefits and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so something like that, or Walmart, would be good.
Mm-hmm.
A job is a job is a job. At the end of the day, you gotta find a way to pay the bills.
Right.
My preference would be to work online so I could be a digital nomad. But if I have to.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, if you didn't have, like, all the education, all the background and stuff, that'd be what you'd be doing?
Well, yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's not my dream job, but why not?
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you definitely have, like, the willpower to go and just do whatever it takes. And that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, that's it. I think this I'm reading this book right now. What is it? It's called So Good You Can't Ignore You. Popular book.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It debunks the myth that there's you should follow your passion,
Mm-hmm.
because you could be passionate about anything. You can choose to be passionate about the work that you have. You may not want to, but you can. So, if I can just find that one thing and be really good at it, so good that no one can ignore me, I can dictate the terms of my employment,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm the only one that's that good at the thing I do.
You're the only one that's that good.
Yeah, then I think I'd be happy. Right? It doesn't have to be the thing you wanted to do when you were 5. Probably it isn't, actually.
Right.
When I was 5, I wanted to operate, what is it? Big machinery, right? Like,
Yeah.
be the garbage truck driver or the crane operator or whatever.
No, I wanted to conduct trains.
Oh, yeah. So, but how many train conductors are there? So, but there's lots of other jobs out there that you can do that you can be happy at.
Mm-hmm.
I think I get a lot of happiness out of just doing a good job at the end of the day and feeling good about what I did.
That's really
It doesn't matter whether I did a good job serving pizza or teaching a lesson on how to reproduce a matrix. I mean, if I've done a good job of it, I'm happy. That's that.
That's really cool.
But I given that I want to be a digital nomad, I think I have to be a little bit careful about what jobs I end up doing. I want to work towards that goal so I can work abroad.
That's smart, yeah. I could see you with a really nice online business.
Yeah. Me too. One day.
That's awesome. So if any listeners want to learn more about you or get more information on what you do, is there somewhere they should go?
I don't have a very good website, embarrassingly. You can Google Greg Mayer. I know I have a LinkedIn page that I've updated in the last 5 years. I'm trying to get a website set up, but finding the time to actually do it is pretty hard to do. I'm on the Bigger Pockets forums. You can find me there. You can find me on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram. And I had a Twitter account for a while. I haven't tweeted anything in years. But yeah, Google me. You'll find a Greg Mayer who teaches math. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That's awesome. It's really, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yay.